and welcome to the Mobile Matters podcast, powered by the Mobile Chamber, where we dive into the big topics shaping Mobile's thriving business community. I'm your host, Bradley Byrne, President and CEO of the Mobile Chamber. A special thank you to our podcast sponsor, Visit Mobile, for making today's episode possible. They're offering prizes for local businesses who offer referral for a conference to come to Mobile. Find out how you can win big with the Bring Your Meeting Home campaign on thebusinessview.com. Today is a very special edition of the podcast because we get to sit down with Mobile Mayor Sandy Stimpson as he wraps up his 12 years of unrivaled leadership in the port city. Mayor, great to have you on the show.
Great to be here.
So I warned everybody that neither you nor I are scripted for this, so who knows what's going to happen.
Dangerous.
But, at a recent event where we had this great news that was coming down, I was thinking, we didn't just get here yesterday. And when you first took on the mayorship 12 years ago, one of the first things you had to deal with was some financial issues at the city. And if you don't solve those, you don't get to anything else.
That's exactly
right. What'd you find and what'd you do about it?
That's exactly right. And we kind of coined a phrase that if the money doesn't work, nothing works. Right. And that's true in business. That's true at your home, whatever. And so we found the city that had no general fund surplus. I would say that it's arguable that we were headed to bankruptcy. We had pretty much maxed out on our borrowing capacity, and so we realized that we had to get that under control. And very, very fortunate for the city and for me, Paul Wesch was the finance director. I asked Paul to leave the Mitchell Company, which under the blessings of John Saint he did. And Paul came in and really in pretty quick order realized what we needed to do. And so we recast the budget that had never been recast before. Usually an incoming mayor inherits a budget from the previous mayor. Well, Paul made it very simple, said if we continue on this, we'll have a huge deficit, and we can't knowingly operate under a deficit. And so we recast that budget and found out that we had a lot of people that had been given budgets, but they really didn't know how to budget and didn't know how to operate within a budget. Long story short, we did a lot of changing. We didn't have any layoffs, but we just put a hiring freeze in, and we quit spending money on things that we didn't need to spend money on. It was kind of like it's got to come to the mayor's office or come to Paul's office to get approval to spend money in certain areas. And over a period of the remainder of the year, we ended up stopping the outflow of cash, and we ended up with a small operating surplus that first year. So that set the tone, I think, and sent kind of maybe a shockwave through city government that it was going to be different, that there were going to be cost controls in, and we were going to adhere to the budget.
It sounds boring.
It was boring. No, it was not boring. It was heart-wrenching for a while there because we weren't sure how we would get a grip on it.
Well, and you picked a great person in Paul Wesch, a longtime friend of mine. And I remember when I heard he was taking your position, I was in the middle of my congressional campaign. I called him and said, "Have you lost your mind?" And he says, "Well, I'm not the one running for Congress." So he also had that incredible sense of humor that allowed him to get through everything. But, okay, so you get the financial house in order, although it took longer than that first year. I know y'all went through several years of that. But you also had to deal with an understaffed police and fire department, under-equipped police and fire department. So how'd you deal with that?
So, I think the biggest challenge that we had there was we had too many people in the upper management of the police department. We were just top-heavy. And we also, there had not been a raise given to the city employees, the first responders, in 7 years. So you had a lot of disgruntled and disappointed and uninspired, police officers. And so, we knew that we had to start figuring out a way to get a pay increase, but that took that was some measured steps that it took to get to be able to do that. But first thing we did was I knew that we had to change the leadership at the top. And during the campaign, I'd asked Jim Barber, who I did not know prior to deciding I was going to run for mayor, but he and a couple others sought me out and said, if you're running for mayor, we're going to support you because there's got to be a change, or we can't stay here. So I asked Jim Barber, I said, look, I don't understand anything about policing, so please write a plan, of what this looks like. And he really produced the first 21st century plan for policing, probably 18 months, 2 years before Obama's plan. But it was really about focusing in on the real criminals, okay, and not going into neighborhoods and seeing how many people you can arrest, how many tickets you can write. It's let's identify the bad guys, and then let's concentrate on getting them off the street. And so we did that, and so we also, through attrition and through promotions, we put different leadership in place. And through those leadership changes, I think that we ended up with a little more esprit de corps. Mm-hmm. And then we found out that next year that we were able to give a small raise. And then, that kind of built. And so I think there have been 10 or 11 raises for the police and fire over the period of time. But then it came down to the last couple of years where a real general, complete overhaul of the pay plan for first responders. And so when we started, the beginning pay for rookies was $29,000. And so we've gotten that up to $51,000. Wow. So somebody coming off the street today, if they can make it through the police academy and pass all the requirements, they start off at $51,000. And that's the highest, pretty much the highest in the area, although maybe some of the smaller municipalities, have pay a little bit more. But because of the pay increase, because of the leadership in the department now, that we're seeing a lot less turnover and a lot more people engaged, willing to understand that if that part of the quest to have a safer city is policing. Yeah. But it's not all policing. But I feel really good about it because all of that's it's led to what would be a 61% decrease in Part 1 crimes since 2013.
Part 1 now.
Part 1 crimes would be murder, robbery, rape, the violent crimes. And there's like six things in that category. But that's the things that you really measure to see what's happening.
Well, let's go back to that. 61%.
Yeah.
That is remarkable.
We've got a graph that we've kind of been sitting on because, during an election year, we felt like if we put that graph out, that somebody was going to say, well, they're just playing, election year politics. I'm hoping I'll share that, or that someone in the comms department will, and Jim Barber will be able to talk about it. But that's an amazing number. Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that, and I think it's important for you to tell them that.
That's really important.
And we need to tell them that because people value a safe community over just about everything else. Yeah. And the changes you and Chief Barber and other people have made in your department have made a real difference. I'll tell you where I saw a difference. When after the George Floyd event, when cities all over the country were having problems, we had one day, it was a Sunday, I believe, where things got a little out of hand downtown, but the way y'all responded to it, you could tell professionally, eased all the tensions down. By the end of the night, it was done.
Yeah.
That's marvelous.
It really was. And we shared the information of what we were going to do with some of the other cities, and they chose not to do it. And all of them had lingering effects because they didn't do it. But, in most of the cities, you had individuals coming from outside the city coming in who were creating the problem and stirring things up. And they come in and they're, let's say, funded from outside sources. They maybe bring an attorney with them. They bring cash with them. They get out of jail and all. And so, but, Jim Barber decided that, we were going to make sure that if we arrested somebody for doing things they shouldn't do during that time, was that they were going to spend a night in jail because they're not required by law to have to see a judge to be bailed out. And so when they realized they were going to be spending time in jail in Mobile for maybe a couple of days, then all the others left. and it's very, very simple. I mean, but, they don't expect to have to pay a price. They come in and create a lot of havoc. But there were other things that were done that ultimately led to the outcome that we got. But Jim Barber was the architect of doing that.
So get your financial house in order, make sure your first responders are taken care of. Here's another blocking and tackling thing, public infrastructure.
Yeah.
Seemingly little things like sidewalks.
Yeah. So one of the first things that we did, and it didn't take effect to 2015, was there had been a penny sales tax that had been levied prior to my administration. And the money was really directed for capital projects. And so the capital projects could be paving, it could be sidewalks, it could be fixing parks and all. But because of other constraints or other needs that the city had, some of that money was diverted just to operations. Well, when we passed the most recent penny sales tax in 2014, maybe leading into 2015, we made the determination that we weren't transferring any of that money into operations. It was going to repair infrastructure or build infrastructure. And they did it, the city council, and I credit them with doing this. Instead of just the mayor having control over the money and deciding, how the money would be meted out, that it would be divided equally among the 7 city council districts, like $3 million each, and that the city council would have some say-so input into how that money should be spent. And ultimately, the mayor has to sign off on it. And really, it's not just the city council deciding they want to pave this neighborhood or fix this sidewalk, because the city engineering team, they know which streets are the worst. They know which ones are the highest traveled and where the most accidents are. So that collaboration between the city council and the city engineering department, you come up with a list. Well, that, I think, had more to do with people all over the city buying into what the Stimpson administration was doing, because they were seeing projects being done in their district or their neighborhood that they'd never seen done before. They'd always seen it done somewhere else, and they wondered, why not my neighborhood? Mm-hmm. And, people, it's not equitable to be spending money in just certain parts of the city. It should be spread out. So I'd really compliment the council on leading that. I originally felt like that it ought to be voted on by the city, like when we went to Oklahoma City, I think, where they did a penny sales tax, and all of the money went to pay for a baseball field. So they had mega projects that their tax paid for. But that ain't how we ended up doing it, but it's worked out beautifully for the city of Mobile.
Well, and the city looks better.
Oh, yeah.
You drive around and you notice things. I mean, you got this major project that I hope is getting close to completion up in McGregor. That's going to have a major impact on that part of town.
Yeah. But people are going to be shocked when they go around that new roundabout.
Yeah.
I go up there about once or twice a month and look at it, and it's going to open before the scheduled time when we said it'd be completed, and really it's going to be transformative what they're going to see.
Well, you don't get to do transformative stuff if you don't do this blocking and tackling.
Yeah.
And I wanted to start out this podcast talking about the blocking and tackling, because when we get to the next part, we're going to take a break. When we get to the next part, I want to talk about running in the end zone over and over and over and over, which is what's happening right now. So we're going to take a break. We'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Meetings and events bring hundreds of millions of dollars to our local economy, and Visit Mobile wants to partner with Chamber members to keep that momentum going. Know of a meeting or conference that could be a good fit for Mobile? Contact David Clark at dclark@mobile.org. Share your lead, just the meeting name, and you're entered into a raffle. Every qualified lead will win. Some include prizes such as cruises, luxury hotel stays, and restaurant gift cards. Let's grow Mobile together.
Welcome back to the Mobile Matters podcast. I'm Bradley Byrne. I'm sitting here with Mayor Sandy Stimpson, who's counting down the days here. So we blocked and tackled. We got the offense on the field. We got the quarterback back in position. The ball's about to be snapped to him. And the ball goes flying down the field. And all of a sudden, during your term in office, we get not 1, not 2, but 3 final assembly lines for Airbus. When you started as mayor, we made no airplanes in Mobile.
That's right.
Now we're on the precipice of becoming the 4th largest producer of commercial aircraft in the world. How did that happen?
If you go back to the origin of it, I'd say because of the Chamber of Commerce. And I'm very sincere when I say that. But we had Wynn Hallett with the Chamber and Bay Hayes with the Airport Authority. And I think they saw something that maybe most didn't see, that there was an opportunity to, build airplanes here or repair airplanes, because we were repairing them already with ST Aerospace. And I can recall as being part of the chamber. I was on the board of directors at that time, and I think everybody just kind of shook their head, thought we were crazy. Well, so it started with the chamber. And what they recognized, and I think that others started buying into, is it's kind of like locating a drugstore or a place of business. Location, location, location. Well, what we had was that we'd grown up with it, so we maybe didn't recognize it, but we had Brookley with a 10,000-foot runway, which was adjacent to a deep water port, the interstates, the railroads. So we had all the infrastructure in place. And because of the tanker, the competition for building tankers that warfighters needed. Anyway, as you recall, Bradley, you were part of all that conversation. I think Joe Bonner was actually the congressman at that time. But, we just kept selling, and we kept, as we would go to air shows, you would learn more about what EADS or Northrop Grumman or whoever it was, we're talking about what they were expecting to see. And so we were able to refine the message and get more people to come. And finally, they realized that, this was a place to build the tankers. As it was said yesterday, that, some bureaucrats made a decision after we won it legitimately straight up twice, that we would not build tankers, that Boeing would be building the tankers somewhere else. And they're yet
which they've not successfully done yet.
But they've not successfully done. And so, we were very fortunate that there were some people involved with those companies at that time that decided, we like Mobile. We like what we saw of the Team Alabama, which was our United States delegation, was the governor, was the legislative leadership, the county commission, the city council, the mayor. They were all singing off the same sheet of music, and they were all, saying, come to Mobile. And knowing that we were open for business, they finally made the pitch to build the A320 here. And a lot of fanfare went into that. From a groundbreaking standpoint, a tremendous amount of excitement, and I think that probably the toughest decision was the Airbus board of directors. First time they'd ever ventured outside of Europe to build airplanes, and to choose Mobile, what a compliment. I don't think we realized what we had caught, at that time.
Well, what we had caught was bigger than we understood. Because I don't know about you, but I was there at that first ribbon cutting in 2015, just 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I didn't foresee us being where we are today, this quickly anyway.
Nobody saw it. Airbus didn't see it. I mean, they said it. They told us yesterday they did not see it. But what happened was that the results and the outcome was much better than what they expected. And I attribute that to what I say is part of the DNA of our workforce. I mean, there seems to be a lot of pride in our workforce, from the shipbuilding standpoint to whether we're making chemicals, making lumber, making paper. We just have people that are willing to work and put their shoulder to the grindstone and go for it. And so, no, nobody recognized it, but the world knows it now with all that Airbus has said in the recent the publications that have picked up on this, and Airbus suppliers that we had an opportunity to talk to the other day. There's no way to predict what the future growth of the aviation or aerospace is in Mobile.
Well, you mentioned shipbuilding. Let's talk about that now. They were already building ships over there at Austal.
Yeah.
When you showed up, they were building the Littoral Combat Ship, which they've just completed that program, as you know, and the Expeditionary Fast Transport Vessel, which is the dual-hull vessel. Now they're making like 6 or 7 different types of ships for the Coast Guard and the Navy and components for submarines.
Yeah.
Just blew up. How'd that happen?
Well, Bradley, I don't think that any of us have all the answers exactly how it happened, but, it really comes back to people. It comes back to having the elected officials, the business leadership, and the workforce. Everybody is looking for workforce. And what the Chamber has done under your leadership is we had all these components of workforce, but it just didn't seem like that everybody was really collaborating. And you were able to pull all that together. They've been very, very pleased with the workers and workforce in Mobile. Well, that's a direct reflection upon, I'll say, the leadership that's pulled all that together, but it's also what's in the hearts of those men and women that are out there doing the work.
It really is in their hearts. The shipyards made that big shift from only aluminum ships to steel ships. And now they have 2 facilities going up out there. The city played a role in making sure that they got what they needed to make that happen.
Well, a lot of times, Bradley, decisions are made just strictly on survival. I mean, your back is to the wall. There's no way to go forward. And aluminum ships, the LCS program was going out, okay? So they had to come up with something. And that creates an opportunity to be more creative and be willing to take risk. And so I applaud the leadership at Austal and the Navy, for recognizing that it's a beautiful shipyard, okay, and they were doing things that other shipyards were not doing. So the combination of the Navy recognizing that, Austal willing to do it, is and I'll say the support from the community,
right.
It all comes together into a pot and it comes out, and so. But I think maybe the biggest game changer is talking about building the submarine, the major components of submarines.
Yeah.
I mean, that changes the requirements for the skill level in our workforce, and that will raise the bar for what we have to do in our community colleges and what the pipeline's got to look like. But there'll be incredible job opportunities associated with that.
Yeah, no, that already are, and we see more coming. Another big area of growth for us is in logistics, shipping, and we just had a big celebration where we celebrated the fact that our channel is now 50 feet, making us the deepest channel in the Gulf of Mexico. How
Amazing.
big a deal is that?
Yeah. Well, we all heard Senator Shelby talk about how he had the idea. He was in Singapore, talked to them about they were dredging their channel to 50 feet, and he asked them why, and they said, so we can handle the biggest ships in the world. And he came back and said, well, why can't we do that? And he ran into a bunch of naysayers of why we couldn't do it, but Senator Shelby being Senator Shelby, he wasn't be daunted by funding and the collaborative effort between he and the governor, because it was going to take some state money in order to get all the federal money, and the governor was very interested in an infrastructure package for Rebuild Alabama, which was the gas tax. And had she not pushed that along with Senator Shelby and gotten the votes to pass that, you wouldn't have had the deepest channel in the Gulf.
Well, we're the fastest growing container port in the nation.
Yeah.
We're going from 600,000 TEUs, the way you measure containers, to 1 million, like real quick here.
Yeah.
And APM Terminals, that does support along with the Port Authority, says they want to go to 3 million. Well, we've done the calculations here. In order for that to work, we've got to build 50 million more square feet of Class A warehouse space.
Yeah.
So Bradley Byrne won't be the president of the chamber when we build the last of those 50 million square feet. But what all that does for the future of Mobile, in addition to aviation, in addition to shipbuilding, is unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. That's why the other infrastructure project we'll talk about later probably is to do the bridge. To make it all work, you really need the bridge. But going back to the port, it was said yesterday during the ribbon cutting how important the port is to the entire state of Alabama. We call it the Port of Mobile, but it's Alabama's port, and it's positively impacting everything. But something we can't lose sight of is that the container port, we were latecomers to the container port, but it is a commodity.
Which is ironic because the man that invented the idea is from here.
Yeah, that's right, Michael McLean. But you there's only marginal money that's made handling containers. And so we have invested heavily in the container port, and we really need to make sure that we don't forget the bulk cargo.
Right.
I mean, and I have a fear that we've gotten excited about being the fastest growing container port, and we can take the biggest container ships, but we can't forget about coal, grain, lumber, steel, and other things that go through that port, because at the end of the day, from a profitability standpoint to the state of Alabama, those are more important than the containers.
Yeah, the port told me that we're the #1 steel port in the country,
Yeah.
and the #2 coal port.
Yeah. But if we don't take care of the docks and we don't spend a lot of money on maintenance, you'll find out that
Yeah.
product's going to go elsewhere.
So we'll talk about the bridge. I hesitate to talk about the bridge because we haven't been able to make a true announcement yet.
That's right.
We've announced a lot of money coming from the federal government to
Yeah.
go to it.
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
So, I've got to go back to, Bradley, how many times have we been to D.C. asking for money, for the bridge? And never will forget, I'd say, remind myself that Senator Shelby took me to the woodshed. I'd be talking about the bridge, and he'd say, Sandy, it's the port. And if you're confused, it's the port, Sandy. And then the third time I say, finally, I got it, Senator, it's the port. But, during the first Trump administration, the first $125 million federal grant was given through an INFRA grant, which was, a kickstart. And then the state of Alabama's, been putting some money in along the way. And then really kind of out of the blue, $500+ million grant was given during the waning days of the Biden administration. And my understanding is that money was really allocated for another project, but they had timed out, hadn't spent the money, and so they had to find a place to put it. And our project was probably the most likely to be able to get done because of all the right-of-way had been purchased, and so much work had already been done, most of the engineering. And so that was a huge boost, but from the time we got the first $125 million grant, and then the decision was to go forward was not approved by, one of the MPOs, and so that just really stopped the project. But today, as I look back on it, and what I believe, and I think it could be validated, is that because we paused, and really it was because of opposition to the toll, that has cost us $1 billion, maybe $1.5 billion, and we would be 2/3 of the way complete with that project right now, had it not been for the, I would say, misdirected individuals who just think the federal government should pay for everything. And really, there are so many infrastructure projects all across this country that they're just as viable as ours. And so you're only going to build these mega projects with the traffic counts that we have, with toll support.
Yeah.
And, so we'll see how we're here in the last lap of the funding, but it hasn't all been nailed down, and we'll see what happens as we go forward in the coming months.
Okay, so we're going to cross the end zone on that one, but we got some fun stuff.
Yeah.
Like we had the great dedication this summer of the Hall of Fame walk.
Yeah.
More members of Major League Baseball Hall of Fame than anybody else in America, and we've got great statues down in front of the convention center. We celebrated Amtrak resuming service between Mobile and New Orleans. By the way, I don't know if you've heard this, they've already had 36,000 people ride that train.
I hadn't heard that.
And that's just
amazing.
the last several weeks.
That's way over what they
way over what they planned on. And you've got underway. You've got an airport moving to Brooklyn this time next year. You've got a new civic arena that's coming up out of the ground as we speak that we hope opens the beginning of 2027. We've got a host of these things that we've just kind of gotten started. And that's really the fun. That's the touchdowns where you're in the end zone by yourself, just laughing at everything around you.
Well, Bradley, that's true. And all those things contribute to the quality of life.
Yeah.
I mean, when we have the major entertainment shows, let's say music entertainment that come here, that's a game changer. And when you have the hockey that'll be going on, that's something that our citizens don't have the opportunity to participate in unless they go to, Pensacola now. And so those are the kind of things we recognize that you have to have a safe city. But then you have to have things that contribute to the quality of life. Mm-hmm. And that is having an Amtrak that can run to New Orleans, or that's the arena, the new arena. The airport. I mean, the airport is not just a quality of life deal, but that's a huge economic.
Oh yeah,
huge economic deal for the city of Mobile. And it's a little bit behind schedule from what we've originally anticipated, but as you said, it's supposed to be opening this time next year. And I think there'll be a lot of fanfare around it, and I think that we'll see, eventually you'll see more direct flights and cheaper fares, which will bode well for our citizens.
Well, this community owes you a great debt.
Uh,
Those of us who have known you for a long time are, bursting with pride over what you've accomplished. And we know that you've laid the groundwork for a lot of great things to happen after you walk out the door. But I want to give you one last opportunity to say whatever's on your heart to the people who will be listening to this about your last 12 years and what you hope for the future.
So, and you've lived long enough, and younger people, they hear this, they don't live it, maybe haven't lived long enough to see it, but it's really about being able to cooperate and collaborate with people and put teams together with a common objective or a common vision. And I would say there's multiple reasons for the success we've had, but when we started talking about uniting, one Mobile, that was to unite this city.
Right.
Everything in our society is about dividing. It wants to divide you on race. It wants to divide you on political party. And from a biblical standpoint, Scripture says that God commands a blessing where brothers live in unity. And so even though people would take exception with it, where it's not all about kumbaya, but we are all trying to make the city of Mobile a better place to live for everybody. And so when you have that vision and people start buying into it, whether it's a safer city, more business friendly, more family friendly, the chamber right now is doing things, that maybe they otherwise wouldn't do because they've bought into that vision, okay?
Right.
Businesses are doing the same thing, and so you can't predict what people will do but when you inspire them to be part of something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
So I would say that that by casting that vision initially had a lot to do with it. I'd also say that the people that were willing to sacrifice and come to work for the city, like Paul Wish, I mean, my gosh. And when I look at you and Joe Bonner, I would say that's an answer to prayer, because my ongoing prayer had been, God, continue to send the people and the resources to the city of Mobile to transform it into the city that he wants it to be. And we've known each other from high school, but who ever thought that, no, neither one of us ever thought we'd be sitting here doing something like this. Let's be honest.
Certainly wouldn't have thought that I'd be here.
But that's what happens. And I made a comment earlier today in another situation. I just said success begets success. And so as I look to the future, I would say that one of the things, I'm proud that we've changed the image of the city of Mobile. But Airbus helped change that image. People all over the world saying, why did Airbus choose Mobile, Alabama? And then they start looking at it. And now from a site development standpoint, the people that are trying to decide, help businesses where to locate, when they look at Mobile, they say Mobile is up and coming. So we've changed the image of it. The other thing I would say is that it's very gratifying to recognize that we've been part of teeing up what could be a very, very bright future for the city of Mobile, okay? I mean, it's teed up on all aspects. Financially, we're sound. From an economic development standpoint, the Chamber's doing an outstanding job. Businesses are reinvesting in themselves, which means that the employees there, it means a brighter future for them. And so the best really is yet to come, I believe. But in saying that, I would say also that when things are going well, it's really easy to be complacent.
Yeah.
And man, complacency is really dangerous. I mean, when you start thinking you're good, somebody's going to come knock your block off.
Yep.
And so I would say that we need to approach it with a sense of appreciation and gratitude that we have these opportunities, not that we're done all this stuff. Right. It's like, my gosh, you kind of pinch yourself and say, now what are we supposed to do, in order to fulfill the stewardship that we've been entrusted with? How do we move this ball forward?
Well, it's been an absolute privilege to work with you.
Yeah.
Now, you're not disappearing. You're not going off into the mist of time. You're still going to be around, and we're still going to turn to you for time to time. But it is a good time for us to celebrate what you've accomplished along with your team over the last 12 years. And we want to thank you, from the bottom of our hearts from that. Speaking of hearts, from the heart of the Mobile business community, this is another episode of Mobile Matters, powered by the Mobile Chamber, with a special thank you to our sponsor, Visit Mobile. Be sure to subscribe whenever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss future conversations about the people, ideas, and innovations shaping Mobile's business community. We will see you next time.